Welcome to another episode of Leading Ladies podcast at Walsh College. Today, I am so excited to be joined by one of our Walsh College alum and an incredible entrepreneur and author. So Lisa Howze, welcome to Walsh College. Welcome to our beautiful creator studio. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, Lisa, I really enjoyed our conversation. We had a lunch about a month ago, maybe 2 months ago, and you were sharing your journey. And I met you at kind of an MICPA, Michigan Institute of Certified Professional Accountants event. And I was so impressed by you speaking in the room, talking about your book, which we'll talk about in a second. So if you could share a little bit about who you are, what you do, and then your journey that brought you to Walsh College for your Master's of Science in Finance.
Yes, absolutely. So when you think about that question that people always ask, tell me about yourself. I like to say that the best way to get to know a person is by what they believe. And for me, I have 3 fundamental beliefs. Number 1, everything happens for a reason. Number 2, there are people who believe that there's a lack of money. What I believe is that there's only a lack of creativity and imagination. And then number 3, if you want to be great in life, if you want to have significance in this world, you must attach yourself to a cause that's much bigger than you. And so when I think about my life, that is literally how I live it.
Oh, now, I love this, Lisa. I love this. No one has ever introduced themselves what those values, and I know I recognize those when you said that. I said, this is from her book. This is amazing. But I love when you said that about how everything happens for a reason. So
absolutely.
Beautiful.
And the fact that we're here today.
Yes.
Serves proof to that. I'm so excited that you are the president of Walsh College, my alma mater. And then, professionally, when people think about who I am and what I do, I am a nationally recognized empowerment speaker, author, CPA, and career strategist who has more than 3 decades of experience in government, higher education, and the accounting profession, which is where I cut my teeth, which is why you saw me at the MICPA event last fall. And then personally, people always say, okay, well, that's the professional Lisa Howze. Who is Lisa behind the scenes? Well, I am a sister. I am the best auntie ever.
Oh, I love
to my
that.
nieces and nephews. I'm the original bae, right?
The original bae. We got to put that on hashtag.
Yes,
I like that.
And I am that close friend that they say you should check in on, that strong friend. Mm-hmm. Many times what happens is people will see that outer appearance, that strong woman. I had someone a couple of weeks ago tell me that when she saw my video of me getting out of the car with these red shoes on,
yes,
that spoke to her, and that it spoke the word strength, confidence, and I can do it, right? Mm-hmm. But there are some times that sometimes you don't feel like you can. That this is yet another challenge that you got to wake up and face. But you make it through, and I couldn't have chosen a better life.
Well, and you speak to that so well in your book, too, is that just because you're on the path that you want to be on, or just because you're in a career that you love, doesn't mean there aren't going to be challenges and difficulties along the way. We're in one of the most challenging and changing economies that we've been in a while, and especially the accounting profession is seeing so much change and disruption. We know at Walsh, because we're right on the forefront of it, teaching and educating our students in a lot of the different advancements in the CPA exam. But share a little bit about your journey into politics, because I know you have a very interesting and fascinating experience there. And then how the Candy Girl, well, let's talk about what the Candy Girl mentality is, but also how those 3 values of yours have really served you through your life and through your career.
Wow. So let's try to unpack that one at a time, right? Let's start with politics. Mm-hmm. I would never have imagined going into politics, for number 1, right? However, when I did enter into politics, it was at a time in the city of Detroit when we were experiencing a $300 million budget deficit. And when you think about that and how daunting those times were, right? City services weren't being delivered on time. The mayor at that time was threatening to shut off parts of the city in terms of service. Street lights were not working. Buses weren't running on time. And who better to sit at the helm or sit at the table than a CPA, right?
Oh.
So that's how I positioned myself in that race once it dawned on me, like, okay, if this is what I'm supposed to do, okay, I'll do it. Yeah. But I'll tell you, when my friend called me that day to suggest that I should do it, I thought he was crazy. I was like, I'm not doing that. But the fact of the matter is, you talk about everything happens for a reason. Mm-hmm. This opportunity presented itself as one of those things that happened for a reason. Now, I tie it to me being a CPA because of the very fact that we had this budget deficit. But when I think back 20 years or so prior to that time, when I was just starting in the accounting profession as an auditor with Arthur Andersen, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed right out of the University of Michigan, sitting for the CPA exam the first time. And guess what? I didn't pass. So what did I do? I did what anybody else would do. They jump back in and give it another try. And guess what? I didn't pass. In fact, the part that I passed on the previous exam taking, I failed it, but passed a different part. Oh. I was like, what are the odds of that happening? I thought at least I repeat, a good performance on that one part, but that wasn't the case. So as a result, I got upset. I was disappointed. I balled up the results. I threw them to the floor, and I said, I'm never taking this test again. Wow. Now imagine if I had stayed in that place. Imagine if I didn't get exposed to a young lady who was in our office who was a year ahead of me. And she had taken the exam a number of times, but this particular time, she passed 3 parts. And I said to her, Maria, how did you do that? She told me exactly what she did. She told me her study patterns. She told me when she studied and how she studied. And it was before work, after work, during lunch, on the weekends. And that seemed like too much for me. I said, I'm not doing that. And then I said, wait a minute, Lisa. You just asked her, what did she do? She told you exactly what she did. Who am I to say I'm not going to do it? Now, how often do we experience people like that who might come to you for advice, may come to some of their professors for advice, for that matter, right? And the roadmap is laid out on exactly what that person should do, what that student should do. But somewhere down the line, they believe that, I'm different. I don't have to do it that way. There must be an easier way. But there is no straight line to success. Sometimes to achieve success, you have to experience the difficulty. You have to experience the challenge. You have to experience the failure. But a failure doesn't have to be permanent, and it doesn't have to be fatal. What it does is it provides a lesson for us to move forward. And so that next time I was given an opportunity to take the exam, I did exactly as Maria said. And guess what I did? I passed 3 parts.
On the third time, you passed 3 parts. Isn't that incredible? Oh, good job.
And so the last part was just a breeze at that point. So that was like the first career experience where I had a bit of adversity and, was able to turn it around. So thanks to being exposed to success and what it looks like, I was able to do that.
Well, Lisa, I want to highlight that because this is a common theme in our Leading Ladies podcast. The ladies are resilient. They're able to see adversity as opportunity. And I love how you said, kind of success leaves clues. If this is what Maria did and she passed, who am I to say, well, I'm not willing to put in that work. I should have it easier. Sometimes I think we look at business folks, successful entrepreneurs like yourself, and say, oh, they just got lucky, or they were in the right place at the right time. And you created your luck, not only by how you move through the world, taking those adversities and making opportunities, but you put in the work. You put in the time, the sweat, the grit that a lot of folks don't always see. They like to see the celebration, right? Or the pictures of success. So I really love that you spoke about, I listened to what somebody who did it, who got where I wanted to be and how they did it, and then I followed their lead.
Absolutely. And you said something important that I want to touch on. This whole idea about being in the right place at the right time. We hear that a lot. But there's another missing piece. You have to be the right person, meaning you got to be in the right frame of mind. You have to be one who is willing to be coachable, teachable, and open to doing something different. Like we didn't come into this world being all-knowing, right? So that's why we have those who have wisdom, who have been to the places that we have yet to go. And it just behooves us to, like you said, follow those clues.
Yeah, absolutely. Success leaves clues. Don't leave those behind. Yeah, I love that. Okay, so keep going along your journey. This is so good already. Oh.
So of course, like if you think about it, you mentioned about Candy Girl mentality and how that is the foundation. That's the description of my life story from a personal standpoint as I matriculated through school, the early parts of my career, and then this ideal of, entrepreneurship, because this isn't my first rodeo, right? Like literally life has come back full circle. I am doing today as an author and speaker what I wanted to do 18 years ago when I left my corporate job, right?
Yeah.
How many people do you know, like 18 years ago, when I didn't know the economy was going to be what it was in 2008 and 2009. So, but what happens is, you step out on faith. I had the full, belief that what I was doing was something that I was passionate about, that I had the skills and the abilities to do it. But there's this thing that, as a chapter in the book called, I didn't see that coming.
Yes.
So life will throw you a curveball that you didn't see coming. Yeah. And there were some times where I felt like I wanted to give up, but I knew giving up was not the answer. I had to push forward.
So give us an example of one of those times that people listening, students, alumni can say, oh, that sounds like something I've been through.
So it had gotten to a point where, of course, financially, you kind of look at, I looked at where I was financially, and I had been doing financial education. I can recall being at a NABA convention in Atlanta, Georgia. And NABA is the National Association of Black Accountants. I am a lifetime member. At that time, prior to that period of my life, I'd spent 4 years as the chapter president in Detroit. And I always had a passion for, financial education, helping people to feel empowered by using money as a tool to not only something to work for, but learning how to make their money work for them. So these were the things that I was teaching, right?
Yeah.
But I can recall a young lady who was in the audience at one of those sessions, and she mentioned something about deficit spending. Oh. If you've never heard that term before, in other words, that's like using your credit card, right, to fund this lifestyle or to help fund your business. And it made me take a step back and say, perhaps that is what I'm doing. And so it made me reach a point where I started to get concerned, like, can I continue at this pace? Will I be able to realize this dream the way that I had imagined it? And coming into 2009, again, everything happens for a reason. This is the entree into politics that I never expected to occur. And so one of the things that I share in the book is that sometimes when you get down on yourself and you're worried and you're concerned, like, how am I going to make it through the next day? What I realized is that in order for me to come out of that thinking, I needed to be of service to someone else. So I volunteered to help another entrepreneur host an event for her business. And as a result of that, and I won't give it all away, but I will share that someone that I met while I was in the act of service actually helped to change my life and all that had unfolded from a political standpoint. I can say this person.
Yeah, and I love that. So your heart in doing that act of service was truly to volunteer, truly to be of service. And then through that, with that pure intention, came such a benefit for your career. I think that's so important too. So that's being the right type of person in the right room. And it may not always seem like the right room, because sometimes business folks are saying, well, what is the ROI on that event? Or if I volunteer, I do that, I'm not able to be at this networking opportunity. Sometimes it's just stepping back and saying, how can I serve and contribute and not expect anything in return? And that's what happened for you. And then look at the payoff. You didn't know that it was going to happen, but this is how life works.
Absolutely. And there are multiple occasions like that. So if we think about the time when I was a candidate for mayor.
Oh, wow. I know. Wow.
And
it's impressive.
I ran against, our current mayor, Mike Duggan. He wasn't the mayor at that time, of course. He had recently retired from his career with the DMC, and he decided that, he would live his dream of becoming mayor of the city of Detroit. But long story short, we had a very contentious, I would say somewhat fun. It was fun for me. Primary election. Wow. But after the primary, he reached out to me. And he wanted to have a conversation about his candidacy and what it looked like in terms of me supporting him during the general election. Wow. And I literally, when I heard him on the other end of the phone saying this, I'm looking at it like, are you sure? Like, do you remember that stuff I said?
I ran against you. Yeah, exactly. Wow.
But the reality is, in situations like that, it's always looking at what the bigger picture is, right? And so the city of Detroit, again, where we were at those times, it required leadership. And I decided after a discussion that I would endorse him. And every step of the way where I was being asked to step up and given an opportunity, not really expecting anything in return, I was rewarded for that. And I'll just say that it led to, the eventual win of the mayor, me leading the transition team, me becoming his first chief of staff and helping to onboard our team. And so all the amazing things, like right now, you've probably seen recently in the news that the city has increased its credit rating.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so we are investment grade credit rating with the Moody's and Standard & Poor's and all those organizations that rate municipalities. So I can proudly say that I was a part of that.
That's incredible, Lisa. Well, first of all, this goes to the third point you made, which is be of service, be in contribution to a mission bigger than yourself.
Absolutely.
And this is exactly the whole pursuit of saying, well, yeah, I wasn't going to run for politics, but I will do it to serve the city that you lived in, that you loved. And then also when you didn't win, being willing to not only endorse, but join on his team, the mayor that did, to serve the city. And now you're looking back saying, because of the decisions we made before, because those ratings are usually delayed by a little bit of time to build, you were a part of doing that. That's going to help the city tremendously.
Yes. So this has been a 10-year process, right? Oh. And in between time, there was the initial run for city council. Mayoral run was the last election that I ran in. But in between there, I'd become elected to the state house. So I'm actually a former Michigan state representative.
Right, yes.
And because of the experience that I had there, many of the policy initiatives that the Duggan administration had during my tenure, I was a part of helping to make that happen.
Oh, that's
helping
wonderful.
with the exit financing, helping to address burnt out homes and the insurance needed to rectify that, helping families to stay in their homes who had gotten behind on their property taxes, allowing them to adjust the interest rate with the county. Those are all measures that I can say I worked on.
Yep.
And the biggest thing that I'm most proud of, and given that it's still tax season, right?
For a couple of weeks, yeah.
For a couple of weeks. But in Michigan, if people don't know this, in Michigan, we've got a special pass, if you will, in certain counties where the IRS is extending that date to June 17th.
I did not know that.
Yes.
Wow.
For certain counties that were impacted by one of the floods that happened in 2023.
Yeah.
So as a result of that, they're giving business owners and individuals additional time to not only file, but pay their taxes.
Wow.
So that's a huge reward.
Look at this. This is like free. This is great tax information for people listening. Well, and Lisa, what I love about what you're saying too is that this was a 10-year process. Sometimes with entrepreneurship and leadership, you don't always see the benefits right away. And folks can get really concerned. Like, am I having an impact? I don't really think I'm getting results. And they give up before persevering to see that impact. So it sounds like in your life, and maybe you can give an example of, you really had to be in it for the long path, for the long runway, and not just look for what are the quick returns, but really seeing the vision for the future.
Yeah, you can only, hindsight is 20/20. Right? You can see everything by looking back. However, when you're in the process, you don't know. You only hope. And what I have found is work on that thing that's right in front of my face, right? Keep an eye to the future, but you must be diligent where you are. And so I'll give you an example of that, because what I call it in my book, again, as a part of the bounce back framework, there's this ideal of maximizing the meantime. You go from strength to courage, maximize the meantime, and then there's wisdom. So the meantime is usually that period between where you are, where you've been, and where you like to be, right? And many times people aren't comfortable or satisfied with where they are. They want to be at the top. They want to be at that next level. But what I found is in those periods, that's when you might call it or consider it a valley moment, where you're not at the peak, you're not at your mountain, you're not at the top of your game, you're not where you want to be. But the importance of is recognizing where you are and why you are in that moment. So for me, it's about sharpening my saw. It's about accepting where I am and maximizing or fully maximizing the potential of the moment. And so when given the opportunity to work on projects that you don't know what the outcome is going to be, but you just dig in, you focus, you concentrate, and do what needs to be done and let the results take care of themselves. Oh, that is a part of maximizing the meantime.
I love that framework. So do you think you'll ever do politics again in your future? You see that happen?
Well, I'm looking at what's in front of me, right?
Very good framework. Yeah, no, that's exciting. Well, and it really is public service. I think the best folks, politics can get a very negative rap. Yet really, when you're in it to serve and you see that you're part of something bigger than yourself, even on those difficult days, the mission, the ability to impact, like you said, the credit rating for the city of Detroit, to be able to help them financially recover and get stronger, that is so rewarding because that benefits so many folks. That it benefits, the kids in the schools, and it benefits the working professionals, the economy. All of that lifts up through service.
Absolutely. And I think on that note, there are people who serve in elected office. I've been there, and I won't say I've done that, meaning I'll never return, but there are other ways to serve. And through my book, it's actually mission driven, right? Yeah. So I'm very passionate about creating the next generation of leaders, those who have a strong financial acumen so that they're making decisions with their money instead of their money making decisions for them.
Ooh, that's powerful. I like that. Yes. And tell a little bit about what you do. I heard you speak at MICPA, but I know that you speak to students and you speak to young people. And what is the message that you convey when you talk with them?
So there's two audiences that I speak with. One is the youth audience, but professionals as well. And so the youth, for that matter, is more like the beneficiaries and the recipients of the work that I get to do. So when an organization partners with me, whether they're a bulk book order partner and they purchase the book, they will either make those books available to student services organizations that service students, right? Or they'll make the books available to their employees. What that does in turn is it frees me up in a couple of ways where I can donate my time to an organization like the city's Grow Detroit Young Talent Program, where last year we were able to award 600 books or 600 copies of the books to young people, thanks to those who partner with me and individuals who said, hey, Lisa, I love what you're doing. How can I help? And so they would donate a dozen or donate a half dozen to contribute to that cause. Going in and having those conversations with junior achievement and the kids that they bring in from the various schools that they work with and sharing with them my junior achievement experience. And I think it's important, right, to take note there of why the book is even called.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's get into Candy Girl. I love the word candy. Okay, good.
So sometimes, or when I was first promoting the book like 2 years ago, before I'd even published it, I was telling people, hey, this book is coming. I'm working on it. I'm at this phase in the process, so on and so forth. And I know that there were certain men who may have been confused by the title, thinking that it was only meant for women and girls. Well, let me clear that up. The reality is Candy Girl mentality is a mindset. It is a way of thinking. It's actually an entrepreneurial mindset, meaning that you recognize that life isn't happening to you, life is happening for you. And so when life starts lifing the way that life does,
lifing, yes.
The question is, what are you going to do in return? How are you going to respond? And so all throughout my life, whenever I've experienced a challenge or something didn't work out according to plan, of course, I may be upset for the moment, disappointed. A number of times that's occurred. And I know I don't speak just for myself. But the question is, how did I bounce back from those setbacks. How did I bounce back from that initial disappointment of not passing the CPA exam? How did I bounce back from not being promoted with my peers when I thought that I should have been promoted to senior as well? How did I bounce back when I didn't win the city council race, but got a call the next day suggesting I should run for state rep? All those opportunities that were presented to me were given me a chance to look at the situation different, finding that silver lining, if you will, and saying, oh, I can see this differently now. Okay, so I'm going to act accordingly. That is the Candy Girl mentality.
That is beautiful. In fact, we had a podcast earlier today, and we talked a little bit about Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich.
Yeah.
And it really reflects so much of what you're saying, too, about how in every adversity, there is the seed of equivalent or equal advantage. And so the way that you move through the world, the way you've moved through your career has been, okay, this adversity has happened, but how is it happening for me so that I can make something even better from it? So, Lisa, how much of that do you think is the mindset that actually helps you see and create that opportunity versus just, if you didn't have that mindset, would it have happened anyway? Like, what if somebody says, well, you just got lucky or that happened anyway? Or do you believe that the way that you perceive situations and go into it helps to create that future?
I would say, and I want people to know this about me, I am a woman of faith, right? So by being grounded in my faith, in my beliefs, those core beliefs that I shared with you before, that's what guides me, right? I don't believe that things happen by chance, per se. Things happen, but again, it's about, did it happen to me? Or did it happen for me? How can I use it to my advantage? How can I take adversity and turn it into an advantage? And that's what I've been blessed to be able to do.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that. And I'm a person of faith as well. And I look at that and say, what is God trying to teach me here? And sometimes he'll give us a lot of times to learn a lesson.
Oh, yeah.
Before he'll kind of say, okay, now you're really going to learn it. But it's always for our benefit. Because many times I look back and I'm thinking, why did this happen at this time, right? And then I realized I had something to learn from this. I had something to grow from this. So this adversity that occurred, generally it's of my own making. When I really look back at some of the problems I've had, I'm like, I was involved in all of this, right? Yeah, this was really me. And then me again. And there I am again.
There I am again.
Yeah. And then it was, what did I need to learn? Because I kept putting myself in the situation to see this pattern. What is God trying to show me? And I believe that moving through the world that way, when I've talked to the most successful business owners, entrepreneurs, I mean, some of these people, they're in the 8 figures, maybe even going into 9. They will tell you that they can't always explain how success happened in their life, but they can tell you that there was an element of faith where they just knew they were destined for something bigger. And as you had said, when they let go of the me and they looked at the we, they looked at the contribution they could make in the world, it was as if the money opened up and the abundance opened up. So when you talk about money, you're right. I mean, deficit spending, even the words of it come from a scarcity standpoint of not enough, so I better keep spending so I can look like or have more, versus stepping back and saying, wait a minute, how can I create something of value? How do I really step into my purpose so that I can have that abundance? And you speak into that so well. Your book talks about that too. So share a little more about Candy Girl, though, and kind of like how that entrepreneurial mindset showed up for you, even very young, even if you didn't fully know all of this about adversity.
Yeah, so it all kind of unfolds, right? As you turn the pages, the story continues to unfold. And so if I go back to the origin story, right?
Yes.
The origin story, and this is the part that you wouldn't ordinarily read in a bio about me. It's in there now, right? Because it's like, this is my story. This is who I am.
Oh, I like that.
Take it or leave it, like kind of thing, right? But would you believe, I talk about my mom in the first chapter, and even in the second chapter, I kind of introduce her. And in many ways, she's like a lot of people's moms. I hear that from some of the people who've read it, like very close to the chest, love her children, will give her shirt, give the shirt off her back to help her family, to help her children in particular. And she had a strong desire for me to be educated, right? And the thing that I always equate to her is her affirming me as a child. So when you talk about where does this belief come from, where does this confidence come from, I'm thankful that I had a mother who spoke life into me, who said to me as a little girl, Lisa, you're going to grow up to be a special star.
Oh, wow.
And the thing is, I believed her. And so with that, she gave me this thirst for knowledge, and, she would have me practicing my times tables throughout the summer. So like being able to crunch numbers in my head was the thing that, one of the strengths or superpowers that my mom helped me to develop. And with that, though, would you believe that by the time I reached 5th grade, I had my education had been disrupted not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 4 times by the time I reached 5th grade. Like literally, I had been to 5 different elementary schools.
I would not have known that. Wow.
And if someone, which you being in education, if you were to look at my transcript back then, you'd probably conclude that this is a problem child. Like she's least likely to succeed. Well, we know that couldn't be further from the truth.
Absolutely. Not only are you CPA, you have a master's degree, and exactly, yeah.
So one would ask then, Lisa, what happened? How did you turn it around? How did you bounce back? And how did you bounce back better?
Yes.
So it goes back to the time when I was 8 years old. My family had been evicted from our home for the second time in a matter of 2 years. And that's what set off this going from one school to another, because we constantly moved until we found our permanent home. But in that new environment, I got exposed to a young lady who was selling lemonade in front of her home. And when I saw that she was making money from this venture, I said, well, heck, if she could do it, I can do it too. And then fast forward to high school, I got exposed to Junior Achievement. And through that program, and for those who don't know what Junior Achievement is, it's an international organization that teaches youth, grades K through 12, about entrepreneurship, economics, leadership, all of those things, right? And I must add that I am the Junior Achievement Advocate of the Year.
Well,
so I'll be receiving an award.
Where, when, and where?
It's going to be on May 9th at the Grosse Pointe War Memorial.
Wonderful.
From 6 to 9 p.m.
What? Congratulations, Lisa. That's incredible. So I love this. You were someone who came through Junior Achievement, and now you're winning an award. This is great.
I was like, I forgot about that. Let me just add that in.
Absolutely add that in.
So I attribute a lot of my success to Junior Achievement because, again, as a child, I got exposed to something that totally was just mind-blowing.
Well, and Lisa, it speaks into how when we're exposed to things, a mindset or belief, like you said, your mother believed in you. She said, you can do anything you want. You were going to be a rock star. And then Junior Achievement, you got exposed to folks that were doing it. It really shifts your brain to say, this is what's possible for me. So that when those opportunities come up or those adversities, you're able to see those, as they say, the Rudyard Kipling, those two imposters just the same. They're still all benefits on the path forward. Failure, triumph, they're both imposters for experience.
Yeah, and it's just like the more success breeds success. The more knowledge breeds the thirst for more knowledge. And so through those experiences, being exposed to Junior Achievement and taking part in that, also being given opportunities to, have a co-op job when I was in high school. So not only was I selling candy and making money from that, I turned a $13 investment in M&Ms into more than $4,000.
I love this.
Which helped to fund my first semester at the University of Michigan, right? And the rest, as they say, is history because it is that education that formed the foundation upon which the rest of my life had been built.
Oh, I love that. And now let's talk about when you came to Walsh College for your education. So what made you look at Walsh? And then talk a little bit about the degree that you have and how you've used it.
Yes. So Walsh appeared to me as a quality institution when I was deciding, I'm how many years into my career at this point? Because I was at DTE. It's 1999 when I decided, okay, I'm going to go back to school. I've been out of undergrad for 4 years at this point. And Walsh gave me an opportunity to position myself, because here's what I saw when I was at my company. I was looking at the different job opportunities that would come up, and many of them would say master's degree either required or preferred. I said, okay, duly noted. And the other thing at that time is I was working, again, in service to my church as the church's accountant. And I know that we have been doing some different transactions with taking out loans, buying property in the neighborhood, building up the real estate so that we could provide opportunities for housing for either our members or other people in the community. Like that was a part of something that I was a part of. And I said, well, what better way to better position myself, round out my education and knowledge than to go back to school? Not necessarily to climb the corporate ladder, but if the opportunity presented itself, I would be in a position to take advantage of it. Because I said, and I've heard this said before, Les Brown, I believe, said it, it is better to be prepared for an opportunity and not have one than to have an opportunity and not be prepared. Oh,
first of all, I love Les Brown, and I love that phrase. I had not heard that before, but isn't it amazing when someone says it, you're like, oh yeah, that's so true.
Yeah.
I love that.
So that was the initial motivation for going back to school and choosing Walsh as that school of choice. And so the Master's of Science in Finance program, what was beautiful about it was a couple of things. One, the professors demonstrated that they cared. They also worked within the profession, so they weren't just teachers. They had practical experience that they could relate to us as students. The other thing is that the work that I was doing at the time also translated into some of the things that I was studying. So the two went hand in hand. So I felt really good about that. I think one of the things that, as I reflect on that time in my life, is staying present to the relationships, right? Oftentimes when we go to school, we're focused on passing.
Yes.
Right? We just want to get through this class, get an A, hopefully, right?
A, finish it.
So we can move on. But what happens that we're sometimes unaware of is that as we're passing time, we're also passing through and passing up the opportunity to connect. And so if I were to talk to a student, whether in undergrad or graduate school, I'd say get the grades, do all that you need to do to study well and to perform well, to position yourself for that career. But don't forget about the people who are around you. Like these are the people who are a part of your network, that when that career doesn't work out over here, John or Bob or Paula may be the very person that you can lean on or speak to when you need some advice, when you need some guidance, when you need support for that next venture. And
Ed Milet always says your network is your net worth. Yes. So you want to build that up so that when you do need it, if you need it, you can rely on it, whether it's advice, whether it's counsel, it's connections, it's the next career move. And we tell our students that all the time, is that many times, even if you have a job, come to our career fairs anyway, because you don't know who you're going to meet, who you can bring into your network that for your next job, or maybe you have somebody that's looking for a position or they know you now, you've got that internal network built. So I love when you say that, because when you think about being at the right place, it's knowing the people. Many times we get invited to events because of our network, and it's at those events that the next big thing in our life opens up. So I love that advice for young folks and even for students to say, look, go to these events. I know we're in a hybrid learning environment. I know our students love that, which is great. We can meet our learners where they're at. But when we have events on campus, like our career fair, internship connection, or any type of an HR summit or business summit, definitely come to campus, because you're able to connect, you're being in community, and you build your network.
Absolutely. And that whole ideal about being present takes me back to a time when I was a student at Michigan. And I knew that I wanted to work for Arthur Andersen.
Oh, wow.
And I knew this right in high school, right? And every time they came to campus, even though I was still in the younger grades, as far as, freshman and sophomore, I couldn't start to work with them yet. But whenever they did come to campus, I made sure that I was in their face, shaking their hand, saying, "You remember me? I'm Lisa Howze." I think that's so important. And given that we're in this hybrid environment, as you mentioned, I think people rob themselves of the opportunity to stand out. It's like when those recruiters show up or those representatives from those companies show up, they're excited. They're elated to see a live person in front of them. And so what would it be like if that person is you?
Yes. Oh, we agree. Yeah. In fact, it's great because we've had over 100 employers at times, and then students come, and it's just been so dynamic there, and they're so excited to connect and meet. And even if, again, they don't take the job there, they now have that connection for life. So
Absolutely.
It's just a great way to build that. So Lisa, talk a little bit about so in your book, for example, you talked about a company or a corporation sponsoring books, and I love what you do. So in the beginning of your book, you have a way of giving recognition to the corporations, to the organizations. So if somebody were to say, you know what, Lisa, I want to put your book in the hands of 100 young people, what do you offer those corporations, those organizations as a way to recognize and thank them?
Yes. So there is a page in the front of the book that's a thank you to our supporters. Thank you to our book order partners is what I call them. Bebop, right?
Bebop? I like that. Okay. Book order partners.
Yes. And what that does is it's a way for them to continue to brand themselves with the recipient of that book. So what I do is I provide a branded label that has their logo and their organization's website, and I affix it to the front part of that book so that when that young person receives it and they open to that page, they know that that book was provided by this organization.
Oh, I love that. That is such a way to honor them and recognize them, and also, you know, to help the young folks know that like there are people out there that want to support the journey. So I love that. And then where can they get the book?
So they can get it through my website, candygirlmentalitybook.com.
Candygirlmentalitybook.com, and we'll put a link to that as well in the show notes. Yeah,
absolutely. And then the other thing about, that whole connection and placing the label there, it may be something years down the road where that young person, now they're being exposed to this organization that they may not have known existed before. They could be a senior in high school preparing to go to college. But I've always appreciated the whole idea of first impressions or lasting impressions. When I was first introduced to Arthur Andersen, they immediately became the company that I wanted to work for.
Wow.
And so I think that it's like planting a seed. So whenever a partner partners with me in this way, they're helping to plant a seed.
Yes.
That can only grow and develop over time.
No, that's so true. And Lisa, that's so true because so many of our accounting firms say we want to reach back and access students in high school or even junior high, in part because there is a little bit of a challenge recruiting talent, but they also know what you just said, which is folks tend to identify with a brand, with an association early on. So this is a great way for accounting firms, auditing firms, financial services firms to say, look, I can do this. I can partner with Lisa. We can get some incredible, and the nice thing about your book is it teaches mindset. And all of that is so important when you show up to work, whether you're working as an accountant, an auditor, you're leading and managing accounting and auditing teams. So to be able to say, we're going to help these folks develop a Candy Girl mindset and a great mindset around money. And at the same time, we're going to actually have our logo, our brand, out to those individuals as well, so they can begin associating themselves or seeing themselves here. That's just really powerful. So I just want to affirm you for doing that. I think it's a great way to serve not only the reader, the learner, but also the organization that's taking the time to invest in future talent.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Well, I am so excited. This was wonderful to be joined by Lisa Howze, a Walsh College alum, and to learn more about her book, Candy Girl Mentality. I have it. I've read it. It was very good. And I had the opportunity to actually meet with Lisa before. So she shared some of the experiences. So as I was reading it, I was thinking, oh my goodness, I can almost visualize this here. But it's a really great book, especially for entrepreneurs and young people. And if you're an organization or corporation and you want to be able to get this book in their hands and get your logo and get your name there, definitely go to the website. So thank you so much for another wonderful episode of Leading Ladies at Walsh College.